Trang 1. There's a certain unease that slowly creeps in when you sense that someone around you isn't being entirely genuine. Maybe it's a friend who beams a bright smile whenever you talk about your success, but then their eyes flicker away, avoiding any real connection as you share your joy. Or perhaps it's a colleague who showers you with endless compliments, yet something in their voice feels hollow, like an echo bouncing off empty walls rather than a heartfelt sentiment. Envy and falsehood are remarkably insidious forces. They rarely burst onto the scene with a loud, unmistakable crash. Instead, they seep quietly into your daily interactions, wrapped in words that sound warm and supportive but carry no true substance beneath their pleasant surface. This is exactly why the test of careful observation becomes so crucial. Rather than getting lost in what people claim, you must pay attention to what they consistently do, because that's where the truth hides. A truly supportive person's behavior aligns seamlessly with their words. If they call you a friend, they show up when it matters. They stand by your side, not just when everything is going well, but especially in times of struggle. The ancient Stoics knew that the external world was filled with illusions, images that look sincere but mask something entirely different underneath. One of the greatest threats to a person's inner peace is letting deceptive or envious individuals influence your thoughts and decisions. As Epictetus wisely put it, the key is to keep company only with those who uplift you, people whose presence brings out your very best qualities. But here's the question: how do you tell the difference between a genuine friend and someone who secretly resents your achievements? How can you spot hidden envy and dishonesty before they weave their tangled web around you? This episode is here to help you sharpen your perception. We're going to explore 10 powerful ways to recognize envy and falsehood in the people around you so that you can protect your peace of mind, steer clear of toxic influences, and build relationships grounded in sincerity and mutual respect. By the end of this journey, you'll hold the tools you need to navigate your social world with clarity, composure, and the same timeless wisdom the Stoics once practiced. Let's begin with the first lesson. Observe their actions, not their words. People can say all the right things, profess loyalty, promise unwavering support, and even declare their admiration for your work. But words alone are cheap currency. They can be spent freely without cost. Actions, on the other hand, are the true measure of someone's character. Marcus Aurelius himself emphasized that reality must be judged by deeds rather than illusions. He once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This wisdom isn't limited to self-reflection, it also guides how we evaluate the character of those around us. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever known someone who constantly spoke about kindness and virtue, yet in moments of true need, they were nowhere to be found? Or perhaps a colleague who boasted about teamwork and integrity, but seized every opportunity to claim credit for someone else's effort, leaving you questioning their sincerity. Envious and false individuals often display these glaring contradictions. They talk endlessly about honesty, respect, and integrity, but their behavior quietly tells another story. They might praise your successes to your face while secretly hoping for your downfall the moment you turn away. Take, for example, the rise of Julius Caesar. Throughout his climb to power, he was surrounded by senators and supposed allies who spoke eloquently of loyalty and unity, yet many of them quietly plotted against him when ambition clouded their principles. And so, as you start to observe the people around you more closely, you'll discover that their consistent actions will reveal who truly supports you and who only pretends to. In the next section, we'll uncover more subtle signs to help you see through the masks people and recognize the truth behind their words. Yet when the opportunity finally presented itself, their actions painted a starkly different picture. Envy and ambition grew like hidden weeds, silently twisting their loyalties until they betrayed him in the most treacherous way imaginable. Caesar's downfall did not come at the hands of obvious enemies. No, his ruin was crafted by those who pretended to be his closest friends, those who wore masks of loyalty while secretly sharpening the knives behind his back. This same pattern repeats itself all around us, even today. Perhaps you've known someone who seems to light up when you succeed, at least on the surface. But when real opportunities come your way, when doors finally open for you, do they celebrate your achievements wholeheartedly? Or do you catch glimpses of something darker in their reactions? Maybe a subtle sigh, a compliment laced with sarcasm, or a comment that stings more than it supports. These are the moments that matter most. Pay close attention when words and actions fall out of sync, because in those small cracks, the truth almost always seeps through. The Stoic approach to this is beautifully simple. Observe without attachment. Do not rush to justify someone's behavior or weave excuses for why they act the way they do. See people exactly as they are, not as you wish them to be. As Seneca wisely wrote, the best indicator of a person's character is how they behave when they think no one is watching. So here's an actionable step you can practice starting today. Begin noticing patterns. Ask yourself, does this person follow through on their promises? Do their actions consistently match their words, even when it costs them something? Or do you see them say one thing and quietly do another, exposing an undercurrent of falsehood they hope you won't detect? The more you rely on careful observation instead of comfortable assumptions, the clearer the truth becomes. And once you see that truth, you gain the power to make wiser decisions about who truly deserves a place in your life. 2. Evaluate their response to your success. Success has a remarkable way of peeling back the layers of people's true feelings. When you accomplish something, a long-awaited promotion, a personal milestone you're proud of, or even just a moment of happiness, watch closely. How do the people around you react? Do they share in your excitement without reservation? Or do you sense a shift in their demeanor, something cold and unspoken sliding into the space between you? Envy thrives in silence. It hides behind forced smiles and congratulations that feel brittle, like glass ready to crack. The ancient Stoics understood that true character is never revealed in polite words, but rather in how a person handles the success of others. Imagine this scene. You walk into the room beaming with good news, eager to share your joy. Your friend listens, but instead of matching your enthusiasm, they glance away, press their lips into a strained smile, and quickly change the subject. Or maybe they shrug and murmur a dismissive remark. Well, must be nice. Some of us still have to work harder for things like that. These are not harmless reactions. They are subtle signs of resentment, clear indications that your success has triggered something uncomfortable in them, something they may not even be willing to admit. A true friend, a person of virtue, will rejoice in your achievements without feeling diminished by them. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, captured this truth perfectly when he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Envy grows from a sense of lack, from an inner emptiness that cannot stand to see others thrive. Those who are secure within themselves, who have learned to be content, don't see your success as a threat. They see it as proof that good things are possible, as inspiration rather than competition. But those who are insecure, those who measure their worth by constantly comparing themselves, will inevitably struggle to celebrate your victory sincerely. You'll often notice these envious people trying to downplay your success, to make it seem smaller or less significant than it is. They may disguise their discomfort with humor or teasing, but if you listen closely, you'll hear the truth beneath their words. In the next section, we'll explore even more subtle clues that reveal hidden envy and uncover how you can protect your peace without losing your compassion for others.
They might say it was just luck, or that anyone in your place could have done exactly the same thing. Sometimes they'll even act supportive in public, offering warm congratulations and polite applause, yet the moment your back is turned, they quietly criticize or belittle your accomplishments. In more extreme cases, such people will go further. They may attempt to sabotage you, subtly discouraging you from aiming higher, planting seeds of doubt in your mind, or trying to claim credit for the work you poured your heart into. Consider Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who rose from total obscurity to become one of history's most powerful leaders. He built an empire with determination and brilliance, only to be surrounded by advisors and generals who both admired and secretly resented him. Many of these men, who had once sworn loyalty, eventually turned against him, not because he failed them, but because his remarkable successes stirred up their envy and insecurity. History is filled with examples just like this, figures who reached greatness only to be betrayed by those who simply could not bear to see them rise any further. So, how can you protect yourself from hidden envy and the silent sabotage it inspires? One essential strategy is to pay close attention to consistency. A true supporter will stand by you in your struggles and your triumphs alike. They won't vanish when you're doing well, nor will they hesitate to cheer for you with genuine enthusiasm when you succeed. Someone who only seems comfortable when you're down but grows distant, cold, or critical the moment you begin to flourish is revealing their true colors, whether they intend to or not. Here's your Stoic action step. The next time you share good news, no matter how big or small, pause and observe carefully who lights up and celebrates with you without a hint of resentment, who tries to minimize your achievement, change the subject, or offer a lukewarm, obligatory response. Most importantly, who remains steady and supportive, whether you're struggling or soaring. The people who are truly in your corner will never resent your growth. These are the people you should treasure, the ones who see your victories as a shared joy rather than a personal loss. 3. Observe how they treat those who cannot benefit them. A person's true nature is often most vividly revealed in how they behave toward those who have absolutely nothing to offer in return. It's easy, almost effortless, to be kind, attentive, and respectful when there's something to gain. When the other person has influence, status, or wealth. But what happens when there's no reward waiting at the end of the interaction? When the other person has no power, no connections, nothing to give. That is the moment when envy, falsehood, and arrogance show their real faces. The Stoics spoke often about the importance of virtue over external status. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor with immense authority, stood this truth deeply. Despite ruling over a vast empire, he reminded himself daily to treat every person with dignity and respect, regardless of their rank or wealth. In his meditations, he wrote that a person's worth should be measured by the goodness of their character, not by their position in society. But not everyone lives by this principle. Think about the people around you. Do they treat their boss or wealthy acquaintances with warmth and generosity, but act dismissively or even cruelly toward service workers, subordinates, or anyone they perceive as unimportant? Do they shower respect when there's an audience, but grow cold and indifferent when no one is watching to hold them accountable? This behavior is a bright red flag. It suggests that their kindness is transactional, a performance rather than a reflection of genuine character. History offers countless examples of this duplicity, people whose reputations were built on influence and appearances, only to be revealed as hollow when their privilege was stripped away. Take the French Revolution, for example. It exposed the aristocrats who spent their lives immersed in wealth and comfort, ignoring the suffering of the lower classes. When the tides turned, many of their so-called friends abandoned them, proving that their relationships had been built on status, not sincerity. In the next part, we'll uncover even more ways to recognize these hidden dynamics, so you can protect your peace and build relationships that stand the test of time. Sincerity, true, unshakable sincerity, reveals itself over time. You'll often notice that envious and deceitful people display the very same pattern again and again. They lavish flattery and exaggerated politeness on those above them, while ignoring or mistreating anyone they see as insignificant or beneath them. This isn't simply arrogance. It's a window into an unstable, envious nature, a mindset that views every relationship as a means to an end rather than a genuine connection between equals. To them, people are tools, nothing more. But a person of integrity stands apart from this behavior. They treat everyone with the same respect and decency, no matter what that person can offer in return. Their kindness isn't a performance. It doesn't shift and bend to serve personal gain. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who was born into slavery and later became a revered teacher, understood this truth profoundly. He taught that our character isn't revealed when rewards and consequences are obvious. Instead, it comes into focus when there is no incentive, no expectation, no possible benefit. That is when you see who someone really is. So here's a simple but powerful test you can apply in your own life. Watch closely how someone treats the people who serve them, the waiters who bring their meals, the janitors who clean their spaces, the receptionists who greet them, the strangers they pass on the street. Do they acknowledge them with warmth and appreciation, or do they dismiss them as invisible, unworthy of even the smallest kindness? This is your Stoic action step. Become a quiet observer of character. Notice whether someone's behavior changes depending on who they're speaking to. Do they turn on the charm and attentiveness for those with status, only to let it evaporate around those they think don't matter? A person who only shows respect when there is something to gain is not truly kind. They are merely opportunistic. And if they are willing to be false and in the end, a person's real character is not measured by how they treat their equals or superiors, but by how they behave toward those with no power, no wealth, no influence. As Seneca wisely put it, virtue is not proven in easy circumstances, but in difficult ones. When you learn to pay attention, you will start to see clearly who is genuinely virtuous and who is only pretending. 4. Distinguish between praise and flattery. There is a subtle but critical line between genuine praise and manipulative flattery. Learning to recognize that line will protect you from those who harbor envy and deceit. True praise feels honest, balanced, and uplifting. It encourages you, without exaggeration. It reflects authentic respect. Flattery, on the other hand, is excessive, cloying, and often detached from reality. It almost always hides an ulterior motive, a hidden agenda waiting to emerge. The Stoics understood that vanity is a weakness, ripe for exploitation. Seneca warned against those who would use flattery to manipulate your emotions and cloud your judgment. He wrote, "He who praises you more than he should has in his mind either to deceive you or to make use of you." In other words, beware of those who constantly shower you with overblown compliments, especially when their words feel disconnected from the truth you know about yourself. Have you ever felt that unsettling twinge, that sense that someone's praise sounded just a little too perfect to be real? That's often your intuition sensing something insincere beneath the surface. Flattery frequently comes from people who harbor hidden jealousy or resentment. They overcompensate, not because they admire you, but because they hope to win your favor or distort your perception. It's not uncommon for envious individuals to lavish you with effusive compliments in public, only to quietly undermine you in private. Imagine a coworker who repeatedly insists, "You're the best. No one else even comes close," while behind your back, they carefully chip away at your reputation, whispering that your accomplishments aren't as impressive as everyone thinks. Or a so-called friend who flatters you to your face, only to use your trust as a way to control or diminish you later. In the next section, we'll explore how to spot these subtle manipulations and protect yourself.
Imagine a friend who always agrees with you, who nods enthusiastically at every idea you share, who never questions or challenges you, and who constantly tells you exactly what you want to hear. Worth from those who would exploit your good nature. At first, this might feel like unshakable support, but look deeper, it isn't. It's often a sign of hidden agendas. This kind of constant agreement is rarely about genuine respect. It's about keeping you placated, off guard, and easier to influence. History offers a striking example of this dynamic in the downfall of Julius Caesar. He was surrounded by men who showered him with relentless praise, calling him a god among men and proclaiming his leadership unmatched. But behind closed doors, many of those same men secretly resented his power and ambition. Their excessive compliments weren't sincere. They were a calculated distraction, a glossy mask hiding their real intentions. In the end, it was not Caesar's visible enemies who brought about his ruin, but some of his most trusted allies whose flattery had lulled him into a false sense of security. So how can you distinguish between real praise and manipulative flattery in your own life? One of the clearest indicators is depth and consistency. Genuine praise is balanced. It acknowledges your strengths and celebrates your achievements, but it also offers thoughtful, constructive insight. A true friend, or a person of integrity, will absolutely tell you when you've done something great, but they'll also be honest enough to point out where you can grow. They care enough to tell you not just what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Conversely, someone who only ever offers empty, exaggerated compliments without a single word of honest feedback is likely not being truthful. Likewise, pay attention to those who suddenly stop praising you the moment you no longer serve their interests. That abrupt shift reveals what their flattery really was from the start, an act, not a reflection of real respect. The Stoic approach to this dilemma is simple but profound. Detach yourself from both praise and criticism. Marcus Aurelius advised, do not let either praise or criticism affect your sense of self. Stay true to your path. Instead of seeking constant validation from others, focus on your own principles and your own quiet knowing of what is right. When someone praises you, pause and ask yourself, is this feedback meaningful, or does it feel excessive and hollow? And perhaps more importantly, does this person still respect me when I fall short of their expectations? Here's your action step. Be cautious with those who flatter you excessively, who only ever tell you how wonderful you are without any substance behind their words. Instead, value the people who challenge you honestly, who hold you to a higher standard because they believe in your potential. A person who truly respects you will never deceive you with false praise. They will help you grow, not just protect your ego. 5. Watch for consistency in their behavior. One of the most revealing traits of envious or deceitful individuals is inconsistency. People who are sincere remain steady. What they say and what they do align, regardless of the circumstances. But those who harbor hidden jealousy or secret agendas often shift like the wind. One moment, they're your biggest supporter, singing your praises, standing at your side. The next, they become distant, aloof, or subtly undermining. The Stoics understood that consistency is the foundation of trustworthy character. Epictetus once said, "If a man is inconsistent, he is unreliable, and if he is unreliable, he is untrustworthy." This is a powerful principle to remember in every relationship. Have you ever met someone who seems warm, friendly, and generous when you're thriving, but whose demeanor turns cold and indifferent the moment you encounter a setback? Or perhaps you know a colleague who claps the loudest when you succeed only to disappear when you need help or quietly question your abilities behind your back. In the next section, we'll look even closer at the patterns of inconsistency and how to recognize when someone's support is conditional so you can build connections that stand the test of time. Imagine someone who praises your ideas in private, telling you how clever and insightful you are, yet when it comes time to present those ideas in public, they suddenly fall silent or, worse, act as if those thoughts were their own. These are the clear signals of an unstable, opportunistic person who lacks integrity. History is full of examples of this sort of behavior, people who attach themselves to power or influence only when it serves their ambitions. Think, for example, of the court of King Henry VII. His halls were crowded with advisors and nobles who loudly proclaimed their loyalty whenever it was convenient. But the moment the winds of power began to shift, these same men turned on each other in desperate bids to protect themselves. Many of them ultimately perished, not because they failed to secure the king's favor, but because they built their relationships on opportunism rather than principle. In everyday life, inconsistency reveals itself in smaller, more familiar ways. It's the friend who supports you wholeheartedly when no one else is around but acts dismissive or indifferent when others are watching. Or the family member whose attitude towards you changes depending on whether you have something they want. Perhaps it's the boss or colleague who treats you kindly in private but shifts their demeanor the instant someone more powerful enters the room. These inconsistencies are bright red flags that reveal a lack of authenticity and a character driven by convenience, not conviction. So how can you spot and handle this inconsistency before it undermines your trust? Observe patterns over time. The Stoics believed that a person's true nature is never revealed in isolated moments but unfolds gradually, like the truth emerging through layers of disguise. If someone's kindness, loyalty, or respect fluctuates based on who is present or what they stand to gain, take note. Watch carefully how they behave when there is nothing at stake, no reward to be won, no advantage to be claimed. That is when their true intentions quietly surface. Here's your Stoic action step. Do not ignore red flags simply because someone occasionally behaves supportively. Instead, look at the bigger picture. If their words and actions fail to align consistently, they are not reliable. Surround yourself with those whose behavior remains steady, whose character does not shift like the wind, and whose loyalty is grounded in principle rather than convenience. As Marcus Aurelius put it so simply yet powerfully, a person's worth is measured by what they do, not by what they say they will do. 6. Watch their reaction to criticism. A person's ability to handle criticism says more about their character than their ability to handle praise. Jealous and deceitful individuals often react poorly when faced with constructive criticism because it threatens the fragile self-image they have worked so hard to protect. Instead of reflecting and learning, they may grow defensive, dismissive, or even openly hostile. This reaction is a telling indicator of envy and dishonesty. The Stoics taught that criticism, when offered in good faith, is an invaluable tool for self-improvement. Seneca once wrote, "He who fears being criticized fears the truth." A wise, self-assured person welcomes feedback because they understand that true growth requires humility and self-awareness. But for someone driven by envy, any critique feels like an attack on their worth and a threat to the image they present to the world. Picture this: you point out a small oversight to a colleague, something that could easily be corrected. A secure, confident person will acknowledge the mistake, perhaps even thank you for taking the time to help. But a deceitful or envious person, they will downplay the error, shift the blame onto someone else, or lash out defensively. Their reaction isn't about the mistake itself, it's about their inability to accept anything that makes them feel inferior or exposed. Consider the decline of Napoleon Bonaparte. Once celebrated as a brilliant strategist, he gradually became resistant to any form of advice or constructive criticism. As his ego grew, he surrounded himself exclusively with people who praised him unconditionally rather than challenged him to be better. When his critics tried to warn him about his over-reliance on conquest and the unsustainable nature of his ambitions, he refused to listen. In the next section, we'll examine how this inability to accept criticism can ultimately lead to downfall and how you can avoid falling into the same trap in your own life. Napoleon ignored every warning. His eventual downfall was not caused by enemies alone but by his own refusal to accept constructive criticism. Failing, the Stoics would have called a tragic collapse of wisdom and humility. You'll notice this same pattern repeating itself in everyday relationships. People who are consumed by envy often cannot tolerate even the most well-meaning feedback. They hear advice as an insult, interpret helpful suggestions as personal attacks, and respond not with reflection but with anger, denial, or a simmering passive-aggressive resentment. So how can you apply Stoic wisdom to recognize and navigate this dynamic? Start by observing how people react to small, harmless critiques. If someone cannot handle minor corrections, a simple suggestion or a gentle reminder, ask yourself, how will they respond when confronted with a real challenge? If their first instinct is to deny, deflect, or retaliate, they are revealing a fragile ego and a deep fear of inadequacy. But if they accept the feedback with calmness, gratitude, and a willingness to grow, it shows resilience and wisdom. This ability to remain steady under critique is one of the most reliable markers of true character. Here's your action step. Pay close attention the next time you see someone being challenged. No matter how small the issue, do they listen carefully, reflect honestly, and make changes where needed? Or do they react with bitterness, excuses, and blame? A person's response to criticism is one of the clearest windows into their real nature. Surround yourself with those who value growth over ego. People who can hear the truth without resentment and who see every lesson as a stepping stone toward wisdom. As Marcus Aurelius wisely advised, if anyone can prove me wrong, show me my mistake, or bring a better idea, I will gladly change. 7. Watch for unintentional comparisons. Jealousy often doesn't announce itself with loud declarations. It creeps in quietly, disguised in little side comments and unnecessary comparisons. One of the most revealing signs is when someone constantly measures you against others, even when there is no reason to. Whether they're making direct comparisons or slipping casual remarks into the conversation, these comments are often unconscious or not to chip away at your confidence. The Stoics believed that comparison is one of the most destructive habits a person can cultivate. It poisons happiness not only for the one who envies, but also for the one being envied. Epictetus warned against measuring ourselves by others' standards. He asked, "How long will you wait before you demand the best for yourself? Stop comparing, and live according to your own principles." This wisdom applies both inwardly and outwardly. It helps us protect our own self-worth and also teaches us how to recognize hidden envy in others. Have you ever noticed how some people seem unable to celebrate your achievements without bringing up someone else's? Perhaps a friend or coworker who always adds, "Wow, you got that promotion fast. Most people have to wait years," or "That's a nice car, but did you see what Jake just bought?" or "You're in great shape, but Lisa's physique is even better at first glance." These comments might sound harmless, just casual observations, but if you listen closely, you'll realize they are designed to subtly undermine you, to make you question whether your accomplishments are truly meaningful. Envious people struggle to let others shine without dragging in comparisons to dull the glow. History, too, offers countless examples. In the royal courts of Europe, courtiers would whisper constant comparisons between noble families, fueling rivalry and resentment that sometimes exploded into open conflict. In modern times, workplaces often breed the same dynamic, a culture of measurement and envy that corrodes trust from the inside out. In the next section, we'll explore how to recognize these patterns early and how to stand firm in your own worth, no matter who tries to diminish it. One of the most vivid examples of this toxic behavior can be seen in the rivalry between Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, two of the greatest artists of the Renaissance. While both were undisputed geniuses, their relationship was marked by an undercurrent of constant comparison. Da Vinci, often regarded as the more refined and intellectual artist, was frequently measured against the younger, fiery, and ambitious Michelangelo. Even when no direct insults were exchanged, these never-ending comparisons fueled resentment and suspicion. They became a wedge that turned healthy rivalry into something personal and bitter. This is a perfect illustration of how external judgment and thoughtless commentary can breed unnecessary tension between even the most brilliant minds. In everyday life, you'll notice that envious individuals do something similar when you share good news. Rather than simply offering sincere congratulations, they feel compelled to mention someone else who is supposedly doing even better. Or they imply that your accomplishment isn't as significant as it seems. Their aim is simple: to plant a tiny seed of doubt, to make you question whether you're ever truly enough. So how do you apply Stoic wisdom to these moments? Recognize these comparisons for exactly what they are: a reflection of the other person's insecurities, not a reflection of your worth or your progress. A secure, genuine person doesn't need to measure you against anyone else. They have the maturity to acknowledge your achievements for what they are, on their own terms, without diminishing them by dragging in unrelated examples. Here's your action step. Pay close attention to how people talk about your milestones and successes. Are they genuinely happy for you? Or do they quickly find a way to pivot the conversation to comparisons? A simple way to test this dynamic is by gently flipping the script. The next time someone makes an unnecessary comparison, respond calmly with something like, "Why does that matter? I'm happy with what I've accomplished." Or, "Interesting, but I don't measure my success against others." What's their reaction closely? A confident, well-intentioned person will respect your perspective and perhaps even reflect on their own habit of comparing. But someone envious may become defensive or try to justify why they brought it up in the first place. The Stoics teach us to detach from external validation and define success by our own principles, not by someone else's yardstick. If a person constantly measures you against others, they're revealing their own struggle with jealousy and discontent. Remember, your progress is not a competition. As Marcus Aurelius so wisely put it, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Keep your mind clear of needless comparisons, and be equally mindful of those who try to impose them on you. 8. Watch how they share their personal failures. A person's true character is not only revealed in how they handle success, but perhaps even more clearly in how they respond to failure. Honest, self-aware individuals accept responsibility for their mistakes and use setbacks as opportunities to learn and grow. They don't pretend to be perfect, and they don't shy away from acknowledging where they fell short. Deceitful and envious people, on the other hand, rarely admit fault. When they stumble, their first instinct is to blame others, make elaborate excuses, or portray themselves as perpetual victims of circumstance. The Stoics believe that owning our choices is the foundation of wisdom and self. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what is within our control, reminding us it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Think about the people around you. Have you noticed how some consistently shift the blame for every setback? Perhaps a colleague who never accepts responsibility, always finding a scapegoat to preserve their fragile image, or a friend who insists that nothing is ever their fault, who spins every mistake into a story where they are the victim and everyone else is to blame. In the next section, we'll explore how to spot these patterns of blame shifting and to build relationships with those who value accountability and growth over excuses and denial. Trang 9. It's worth remembering that how a person handles failure reveals more about their character than any polished success ever will. The person who refuses to take accountability for their mistakes is not only displaying a lack of maturity, they are also showing a hidden resentment toward those who do succeed. Have you ever met someone who always seems to have a convenient excuse ready? When things don't go their way, it's never their fault. Their boss was unfair, their co-workers were plotting against them, their childhood held them back, their relationships failed because of the other person. While it's true that external circumstances can shape our lives, a persistent pattern of never taking responsibility is a powerful red flag. It signals a mindset that resists growth and prefers blame to self-awareness. Think about historical figures like Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose brilliance and ambition were undeniable. Yet, when his empire eventually collapsed under the weight of overreach and miscalculation, he refused to accept fault. Instead of owning his mistakes, he pointed the finger everywhere else, at the weather, at his generals, at the whims of fate. Imagine that, standing in the ruins of an empire you built, and insisting it was everyone else's fault but your own. This is the mindset of someone who cannot grow, because they refuse to see their part in their downfall. Contrast this with Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome. Despite ruling one of history's greatest empires, he constantly reminded himself of his own flaws and limitations. In his Meditations he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That single sentence captures the essence of a resilient spirit. Accepting mistakes is part of the path, and striving to improve instead of making excuses. You will often see envious and deceitful people weaponize their failures. Instead of simply admitting where they fell short, they turn their setbacks into a manipulative tool. They might guilt-trip those around them or use self-pity to dodge accountability. Have you ever heard someone say, "Of course you succeeded, you never had to deal with what I went through," or "If I'd had the same advantages you had, I'd be way ahead too," or even "Some of us aren't as lucky as you." On the surface, these phrases can sound like humility or vulnerability, but if you listen carefully, you'll hear the undertone of bitterness. Rather than recognizing the role of their own choices, they prefer to diminish your achievements, suggesting that your success was inevitably and theirs impossible. This isn't an honest admission of struggle. It's a subtle attempt to justify jealousy and to make you feel guilty for doing well. So how can you apply Stoic wisdom when you encounter this? Pay close attention to how people talk about their setbacks and disappointments. Do they accept ownership and look for lessons? Or do they default to blame and excuses? Do they use failure as a stepping stone toward growth or as a shield against self-improvement? A person who consistently refuses to acknowledge their own role in what happens is not only unlikely to change, they are also unlikely to be trustworthy. Here's your action step. Observe the patterns in both speech and behavior. The next time someone tells you about a failure or disappointment, listen carefully. Are they sincerely reflecting and searching for solutions? Or are they deflecting, justifying, and making excuses? This simple practice of observation will help you separate those who are committed to growth from those who are committed to avoiding it. In the next section, we'll explore another revealing trait: how people react to the success of their peers, and why learning to recognize these reactions can protect your peace of mind. Remember this: a person who never owns their failures will never truly own their successes either. As Seneca wisely put it, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Those who refuse to face their own flaws remain trapped in a cycle of envy, blame, and self-deception. If you want a life rooted in sincerity and growth, surround yourself with people who see failure as a stepping stone, not a dead end. 9. Evaluate how they share their successes. Just as failures reveal a person's true character, so too does the way they speak about their achievements. Honest, self-assured individuals are grounded in their accomplishments. They acknowledge the effort it took to succeed without falling into arrogance or self-importance. But deceitful and envious people often distort reality. They may inflate their successes to seem more impressive, or use them as a subtle weapon to diminish those around them. This isn't confidence, it's insecurity wearing a mask. The Stoics warned repeatedly about the dangers of craving external validation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. It is not your job to determine the thoughts of others, but to keep your own mind clear." When you hear someone constantly boasting, exaggerating, or manipulating the truth about their victories, you can be sure they're compensating for something deeper, usually fear of not being enough. You'll recognize these patterns by the way they speak. Some people will turn every small achievement into a dramatic tale of triumph, craving admiration to reassure themselves of their worth. Have you ever known someone who can't just say, "I got a promotion," but has to recount every detail until it sounds like they single-handedly saved the company? Others will subtly wield their success as leverage, reminding everyone of their superiority whenever possible. They position themselves as the indispensable star in every story, the most talented, the most hardworking, the most deserving. Then, there are those who cleverly downplay or even invent obstacles to make their achievements appear almost superhuman. It's not enough to succeed. They need you to feel small in comparison. History offers countless examples of this destructive mindset. Consider Caligula, the infamous Roman emperor who demanded to be worshipped as a living god. Though his rule was built more on cruelty than wisdom, he exaggerated every victory and surrounded himself with flatterers who fed his delusions. His obsession with appearing powerful blinded him to reality, and ultimately it led to his downfall. Now contrast that with Marcus Aurelius. Despite ruling one of the greatest empires in human history, he never sought to glorify himself. Instead, he wrote daily reminders of his mortality, the fleeting nature of fortune, and the importance of humility. This difference between inflating ego and grounding oneself in principle is what separates the truly wise from the insecure. In modern life, you'll see these dynamics everywhere. You might recognize them in the colleague who takes credit for every team's success but never mentions anyone else's contributions, or the friend who never misses a chance to remind you of their achievements while carefully ignoring the role of privilege, luck, or timing. And then there are the acquaintances who only share the highlights, never the struggles. They don't celebrate success to inspire or to connect. They use it to prop themselves up and to quietly suggest that you will never quite measure up. Watch how such people respond to your victories. Notice how often they say things like, "That's great, but I've done something similar before," or "Well, in my field, that's not really a big deal," or "I remember when I did something even harder than that." These aren't innocent comments. They are calculated remarks designed to dull the shine of your accomplishments, to keep you in a place where you question your worth. Ask yourself, is this someone who wants to share in your happiness, or someone who needs to feel superior? In the next section, we'll explore how to respond to these subtle forms of one-upmanship and why mastering this skill will protect your peace and confidence in any environment, from the achievements of others, but to maintain a false sense of superiority. So how do you apply Stoic wisdom to this? Start by paying close attention to how people frame their accomplishments. A person of strong character will share their successes with gratitude and humility. They recognize that no achievement is entirely their own, that help, timing, and even good fortune play a part. Meanwhile, a deceitful or envious person uses their success like a shield, trying to control how others see them. Look for consistency in their stories. Are their accounts of success balanced and truthful, or do they always sound a little too perfect to believe? Here's your action step. When someone tells you about an achievement, observe carefully. Do they use their story to uplift others or only themselves? Do they express thanks for the people who helped them along the way, or do they rewrite the narrative to paint themselves as the sole hero? Do they ever mention the role of luck, privilege, or timing? Or does it always sound as though nothing and no one contributed but their own brilliance? As Seneca wisely put it, success is not in what you have, but in what you give. Those who are truly secure in their accomplishments don't need to inflate them, nor do they need to overshadow the achievements of others. When someone starts using their success as a weapon rather than an inspiration, you have seen their true nature. 10. Listen to your inner voice. Through all these signs, the inconsistencies, the subtle comparisons, the way a person handles success and failure, there remains one final, often overlooked test: your own intuition. The Stoics taught that wisdom, it is not just about observing others, it is about trusting the quiet judgment within you. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this beautifully when he wrote, "Dig within. Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig." How many times have you sensed that something was off about someone, yet ignored the feeling? Maybe their words didn't quite match their energy. Perhaps their compliments felt forced, or their enthusiasm sounded rehearsed. Have you ever noticed that despite their outward friendliness, something inside you simply resisted trusting them completely? This is not paranoia, it is perception. Human intuition is an extraordinary gift shaped by countless experiences, subtle social signals, and patterns our minds pick up on without us even realizing. It's like an internal compass that quietly nudges us when something isn't as it seems. The problem is, we often silence this instinct out of politeness or self-doubt. We worry that we're being too judgmental, too critical, or too suspicious. We convince ourselves that maybe we're overthinking, but more often than not, that small, persistent feeling is telling you the truth your rational mind isn't ready to admit. Have you ever left a conversation feeling drained, confused, or strangely diminished, even though the words spoken seemed positive on the surface? Have you ever sensed a quiet hostility behind someone's smile? That is your intuition doing its job, whispering that what you're perceiving and what you're being shown are not the same. Here's your action step. Next time you feel this subtle tension, don't dismiss it outright. Pause, reflect, ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? What is my body trying to tell me that my mind wants to ignore? This practice of listening to your own instincts is not about judging others harshly. It's about honoring your own awareness and protecting your peace. As you cultivate this skill, you'll find it easier to navigate complex relationships with clarity and confidence, just as the Stoics did centuries ago. In the next section, we'll explore how to set boundaries with people whose actions betray their words, and why doing so is an essential part of living with integrity. That lingering sense of unease is pointing to something real, something your rational mind that hasn't fully articulated yet. You've likely witnessed this dynamic more than once. A friend says they're happy for you, but their eyes reveal a flicker of resentment. A colleague reassures you they aren't envious, yet you notice the little ways they withhold support. Someone in your life appears endlessly encouraging, but deep down, you can't shake the feeling they quietly hope you'll stumble. The Stoics would say, trust that feeling but do not be ruled by it. The wisdom of Epictetus applies here. If someone is speaking ill of you, do not defend yourself against what is being said, but instead observe whether they are right. If they are wrong, it does not concern you. The purpose isn't to become suspicious of everyone you meet. Instead, it's to develop a clear, grounded awareness of reality. When dealing with jealousy and falsehood, your instincts will often detect the truth before your conscious mind can explain it. Words can be polished, but tone, energy, and body language rarely lie. You don't need a signed confession or hard evidence to trust what you feel. Patterns of behavior are evidence enough. So what is the Stoic approach when your intuition sends up a quiet alarm? You don't have to seek confrontation. You don't have to expose or accuse. You don't need to convince anyone of your suspicions. Simply step back, create space, observe. The best response to envy and deceit isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It's calm awareness. You have nothing to prove. You don't have to engage in someone else's games. You only need to recognize them for who they are, and quietly, resolutely, choose a different path. Here's your final action step. The next time you feel that small voice inside, telling you something isn't right, don't dismiss it as overthinking. Sit with it, watch, reflect. Observe how that person behaves over time. Notice whether their actions eventually confirm what your intuition suspected all along. The more you trust your own perception, the less likely you are to be swayed by charming words or temporary niceties. And always remember, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Keep your thoughts clear, keep your instincts sharp, keep your circle filled with people who choose honesty over pretense. Envy and falsehood are not always obvious. They rarely announce themselves with a dramatic flourish. Instead, they leave small, consistent traces, the contradictions, the forced compliments, the way someone's demeanor changes when you succeed. Those clues are there for anyone willing to look. The Stoics remind us wisdom is never about controlling other people. It's about mastering ourselves. You cannot change the envious or the deceitful, but you can protect your own peace by seeing clearly and deciding wisely where you will invest your energy. So pay attention to actions more than words. Notice who shows up consistently, who celebrates your wins without envy, who can accept both praise and criticism with grace. Above all, trust your own perception. The more you sharpen this awareness, the more naturally you'll separate the genuine from the false. Surround yourself with those who uplift, not those who secretly resent. And as you move forward, let Stoic wisdom guide you, not in fear or suspicion, but with a quiet, unshakable confidence that you can see reality for what it truly is. If you found value in this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the principles of Stoicism and self-mastery together. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay aware, and keep choosing wisdom over illusion.